Have you ever wondered, why didn't God choose the mighty Egyptians, the brilliant Greeks, or the ancient Chinese? Why did he choose a tiny, almost invisible people called Israel, a nation that makes up just 0.2% of the world's population, yet somehow stands at the center of world history, global conflict, and Bible prophecy? There's a divine mystery behind this choice, and today we're going to uncover it together. To understand why God chose Israel, we first need to ask, who are the Israelites? They're not just another ancient tribe or ethnic group. The Israelites, also known as the Jewish people, are the descendants of a man named Abraham. God called Abraham out of a pagan city called Ur and made him a promise. Leave your country, and I will make you into a great nation. That promise became the foundation of a divine covenant. Abraham had a son named Isaac. Isaac had a son named Jacob. Then something incredible happened. God changed Jacob's name to Israel. As recorded in Genesis, God told him, "Your name shall no longer be Jacob, but Israel, for you have struggled with God and with men, and have prevailed." Jacob, now called Israel, had 12 sons. From these 12 sons came the 12 tribes of Israel. So when we say Israel, we're not just talking about a country or a religion. We're talking about a family, a covenant people, hand-picked by God for a divine purpose. But that leads us to the bigger question. Why did God choose them? What made Israel so special? And here's the surprising truth. Nothing. They weren't the most powerful nation. They didn't have the largest economy or the most advanced culture. In fact, they were one of the weakest. According to Deuteronomy, God reminded them, "It was not because you were more numerous than other peoples that the Lord set his heart on you and chose you, for you were the fewest of all peoples. But it was because the Lord loved you and kept the oath he swore to your ancestors." God didn't choose Israel because they were great. He chose them to show how great his love is and how faithful he is to his promises. Back in Genesis, God had promised Abraham, "I will bless you, and through you, all nations on earth will be blessed." That promise became a mission, and Israel became the vessel. Here's how. First, through Israel came the law. At Mount Sinai, God gave the 10 Commandments, not to a global empire, but to a group of former slaves. This law wasn't just a list of rules. It was a reflection of God's holiness and his desire for a relationship with his people. It was a way to show the world what it means to live under the authority of a just and righteous God. Second, through Israel came the prophets. Men like Isaiah, Jeremiah, Micah, and Zechariah were all Israelites. They weren't just religious figures. They were God's voice in a dark and broken world. They warned the people when they strayed from God. They called them back to the covenant. And they gave vivid, specific prophecies about the coming of a Savior. Isaiah, for example, described a suffering servant who would be pierced for our transgressions, hundreds of years before the crucifixion ever happened. Micah foretold the Messiah's birth in Bethlehem. Zechariah spoke of a king who would ride into Jerusalem on a donkey. These prophecies didn't just give hope, they gave detail, and they all pointed to the same person, Jesus. Which brings us to the third and greatest reason God chose Israel. Through Israel came the Messiah himself. Jesus Christ, born in Bethlehem, raised in Nazareth, from the tribe of Judah and the royal line of David, just as the prophets had said. He wasn't a Greek philosopher or a Roman emperor. He was a Jewish carpenter, the Son of God. who came to fulfill every promise God had ever made. As the Gospel of John records, Jesus said plainly, "Salvation is from the Jews." So yes, God chose Israel, but not to keep the blessing for themselves. He chose them to carry the light and to share it with the world. But here's a question many people struggle with. If Israel was chosen by God, what happened when they turned away from Him? When they broke the covenant, chased after foreign gods, and rejected the very Messiah sent to save them? Did God abandon them? From a human point of view, He had every reason to walk away. But God doesn't act like we do. And as we'll see in the next part, His response, even to their failure, reveals something incredible about His character. The story of Israel doesn't end in failure, even though it could have. They broke the covenant. They turned to idols. They rejected the prophets. And in the end, they crucified their own Messiah. It's easy to think that God would finally give up on them, but He didn't. Throughout the Old Testament, we see God pleading with His people, not in anger alone, but in love, a love that refuses to let go. The prophet Hosea captured this beautifully. Speaking on behalf of God, he writes, "How can I give you up, Ephraim? How can I hand you over, Israel? My heart is changed within me. All my compassion is aroused." That's Hosea 11:8. And it shows us the heart of a father, not a tyrant. Even in judgment, God left room for mercy. Even in exile, He promised restoration. And centuries later, something miraculous happened. After almost 2,000 years of being scattered, the Jewish people returned to their ancient homeland. In 1948, the modern state of Israel was reborn, just as the prophets had foreseen. It wasn't just a political event, it was a prophetic sign. The prophet Ezekiel once saw a vision, a valley full of dry bones. It was a picture of Israel, lifeless, hopeless, scattered. But then God says, "I will put my spirit in you, and you will live, and I will bring you back to your own land." That's from Ezekiel 37. And it's happening. God's covenant was never canceled. It was tested, but never broken. So, what does this mean for us today? It means that God doesn't give up on what He started. Not with Israel, and not with you. You may have wandered. You may feel unworthy, unchosen, forgotten. But the story of Israel reminds us, God is more faithful than we are sinful. He keeps His promises, even when we don't. As the Apostle Paul explained in his letter to the Romans, God's gifts and His call are irrevocable. That's Romans 11:29. And it doesn't just apply to nations, it applies to you. If you've placed your faith in Jesus, you are part of something bigger. You've been grafted into God's family, adopted into His covenant. That's why 1 Peter says, "You are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession." Not because of who you are, but because of whose you are. Now that you know the truth, the question is, what will you do with it? God chose Israel, not because they were perfect, but because He had a perfect plan. A plan that began with one man, was carried by a nation, fulfilled by a Savior, and continues through people like you. This isn't just Israel's story, it's your story too. If God was faithful to Israel across centuries of failure and exile, He'll be faithful to you. So stay curious, stay watchful, stay in the Word. Because the same God who spoke through the prophets is still speaking today. In the next episodes, we'll ask the questions that many fear to ask. Why is Israel always the epicenter of global conflict? What does Bible prophecy say about Iran, Russia, and war? Could we be living in the final pages of history? Hit subscribe. Share this with someone who needs hope. And never forget, the God who remembered Israel remembers you.